For my final COETAIL project, I'll be focusing on the geometry unit that I teach my grade 12 math study students. The unit itself mostly revolves around surface area and volume of solids. It ultimately gets quite complicated by combining three-dimensional thinking with trigonometry, but is initially relatively straightforward in terms of learning formulas and figuring out how and when to use them. And yet it's a really nice opportunity to do some hands-on activities and to collaborate with others. I had 7 goals for this unit. I wanted to give the kids lots of reasons to work with each other, both to accomplish tasks, but also to help each other through challenging problems. As Bill Thurston, math blogger extraordinaire, recently wrote, "The real satisfaction from mathematics is in learning from others and sharing with others." This is what I aim to create in my classroom. Kids need to feel empathy for each other, for the ones who don't understand things as well as they do, and for the ones who struggle to be more social, for the ones who may be having a bad day. I also wanted them to feel empathy for those beyond their immediate circles. The unit always comes around the time of our all-school service trips. Most of our grade 12 students travel to developing countries and learn to understand the conditions that less fortunate people live in and some of their challenges and joys. I wanted this unit to tap into the sense of empathy they gain on these trips. Connections to each other, connections to what they have been learning both in math and in other classes, and connections to their service trips were important to me as well. I wanted them to do math around something real, centered around something that matters to at least some of them. Of course, they needed to use technology in this unit. This is COETAIL after all. But I also wanted them to make things with their hands, both because it's fun to make things, but also because understanding the physical shape of a solid is helpful in remembering formulas related to its surface area and volume. And yes, they needed to learn some math. It is a math class after all. They needed to learn or relearn formulas for perimeter, circumference and area, surface area and volume of solids, including prisms and pyramids, cylinders and cones. I started the unit by having the kids make different sized boxes out of A4 sheets of paper. I gave each student a value between 1 centimeter and 10 centimeters. They then cut squares out of the corners with these dimensions and folded the paper into boxes and calculated the volume. Then came the fun part. I asked the kids to line up the boxes from smallest to greatest. Smallest to greatest what? Smallest to greatest height? Smallest to greatest volume? How the boxes line up will depend on which attribute they are sorting by. On the left, you can see them lined up by height, while on the right, they are organized by volume. But what if you line them up by both attributes?
The y-axis is volume, and the x-axis would be
Surface area, right?
And then shoulders, knees.
Math studies?
You have a surface area that's smaller than this one, but a higher, so it would be around.
What is happening?
Yeah, right, less. Sorry, my bad.
As you can see, once the kids figure out how to organize the boxes in 2 dimensions with the height of the box on the x-axis and the volume on the y-axis, the boxes seem to be representing a function. It turns out that this is a cubic function, but the cool thing is that the maximum volume is apparent, and kids see the boxes increase, max out, and eventually decrease in volume. They can see there is a limit to what is possible, and ultimately this is a lovely introduction to both geometry, functions, and calculus as well. We'll come back to this activity throughout the year. Next, I gave them a couple of lessons to get through background material of area, perimeter, and unit conversions. I flipped these lessons so the kids could watch videos and complete the material at their own pace. Some were able to skip the videos, some needed to watch them, some needed to watch them twice. Either way, they were set up really well to start the unit. Of course, there were a number of lessons with direct instruction, but I tried to make sure that I didn't talk too much and that the kids had lots of time with their practice sets in class and with very little to complete at home. To introduce the idea of surface area, I had the kids cut out this set of nets and fold them into solids. Before they started, they had to guess which of these would become a solid and which would not. The kids were mostly correct, but I think my favorite moment was when this clever guy on the right decided to cut his apart and retape it so that he would have a solid that worked. One of the biggest challenges they faced in this unit was trying to figure out the net of a cone. Using only paper, string, a ruler, scissors, and tape, I asked them to make a cone with a slant height of 20 centimeters and a radius of 8 centimeters. This activity literally took about a day and a half, and I might have stopped them sooner, but they were enjoying it so much and were having such great conversations about it, I had a hard time stopping them.
This, and then we do a circle starting from maybe the middle, and we go like
We're still around. How, so we can get the height, but how do we get the 8
That's why we have the split. We have the split, so we can fold. We have this, right? And then we fold it over
until we get 8 centimeters?
until we have 8 centimeters in the middle. That's how you do
The
it.
radius, and then
So
we
just-
spin
yeah,
it around
exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
But you did 16, not 8.
Oh my god, why didn't you tell me that before?
Because I wanted you to. I didn't want to interrupt your. Okay, go. Do it. We're genius.
So how far there is on a paper, and then when you like fold it, I found out that this won't make sense, but like 1 centimeter on this piece of paper is the equivalent. No, 1 centimeter in diameter when it's folded is the equivalent of 2.6 centimeters when it's flat. So then, because it has to be 16 centimeters in diameter, I times 16 by 2.6. Which gave me 41 point something. That's why I'm cutting it now.
That's interesting, but 2.6, that's funny for a circle, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do we normally multiply the diameter by?
3.14, something.
So why, wonder where your 2.6 came from.
Not sure.
In the end, one group got really close, but the whole process really helped the kids to understand the formula for the surface area of a cone. I've done this activity in the past and have always wondered whether a day and a half is worth a single formula. But in the end, I've concluded that it's less about the formula and more about the thinking involved in figuring it out. As we neared the end of the unit and finished learning all of the necessary formulas they needed as required by the Math Studies curriculum, we turned to the final project, an investigation into a cistern we have on our grounds at school. A little history. Every year, students in grades 11 and 12 head off to a variety of service projects. Grade 12 students have the option to choose from projects in Nepal, India, Tanzania, South Africa, and Ghana. In 2016, the Ghana group decided to build cisterns out of PET bottles to hold rainwater. They learned how to build with PET bottles by building one on our campus before they left for the trip, so now we have this lovely cistern in our vegetable garden, which we use to water the plants. The cistern seemed like the perfect opportunity for students to apply their knowledge of geometry. They could calculate total volume, current volume, the weight of the cistern, its surface area, and more. I also thought it would be a great way for them to think about their own water usage compared to a family of 4 in Ghana or some other developing country. You see, the cisterns they built in Ghana are meant to help a family survive the dry season, while our students can just return on the tap to get as much fresh, clean Swiss water they could possibly want. I wanted them to collaborate, demonstrate empathy, connect, do something real, use technology, and make or design something. My instructions were intentionally vague. Work together as a class and in small teams, research water usage here and in developing countries, determine the amount of water the cistern holds, or currently does hold, consider decorating it and the costs associated with doing so, imagine another shape, such as a cuboid. How could you keep the same volume? What if you halved or doubled the diameter? They immediately divided up their tasks. I'll make a Google Doc. Who wants to go measure? Who can go get tools? Who wants to start researching? What should we be researching? And within minutes, the room looked like this. A handful of kids on their laptops while the others were out gathering material. Once the basic data and research on water usage was gathered, the kids split into groups of 4 and started working. They had 2 days in class to complete their calculations and put together their presentations. This meant they had to divide up this work as well. They presented on the 3rd day in their groups. Some decided to make posters, others decided to make PowerPoints. One group even wrote a rap song and spent their time working in one of our recording studios. I was impressed with the depth of thought and organization that went into their presentations. One group even considered using the cistern to raise tilapia rather than as a simple water tank, and spent quite a bit of time considering how many fish they could fit into the tank and how much water those fish would displace. I enjoyed this project so much. In the end, I had to feel it assesses their knowledge in a much more in-depth manner than in giving them a test. Though they weren't responsible for every aspect of the unit, they did need to discern what was necessary to analyze the situation, and that is far more intellectually challenging and also real than working through a series of problem sets. What's more, I found that they gained so much more than I had originally intended by making connections across the math studies curriculum and across their other classes. I heard them talking about choosing correct units, about dimensional analysis and converting square and cubic units. Someone mentioned scale drawings when trying to draw the cistern. They were creative in designing their decorations. One group even imagined decorating the cistern in iPhones to demonstrate the absurdity of our Western use of water and our Western lifestyle. There were also discussions around where to purchase products and even taxes and import fees. But don't take my word for it. Here are some of my students' thoughts on both the unit and the project. It's a beautiful thing when a plan comes together. Considering my 7 goals, I am pleased. They worked together, helped each other, considered the lives of others, made connections, applied their learning to something real, used technology, made things, and even did some math. Mission accomplished.
How much does this cistern hold? Is a little math. That question gonna unfold. We need to find the v, so just listen to me. We use pi r squared times height. We already know that's right. So go ahead and measure the cistern. Just be careful, you don't get a blister.